Introducing the Rowsfire A107 mini overhead panel for the A320 Airbus version 3. Hello friends and fans of the Frosty Nut, and welcome to another review video of the new Rowsfire A107 mini overhead panel for the Airbus A320 version 3. This is definitely a big improvement, guys, over version number 2. Already, as you can see now, there's a lot of differences. We have the fire and push engraved on the buttons. The buttons are a bit smaller than the version 2, but that adds that extra little bit of realism by having that. They've also changed the buttons. Instead of having two buttons that always seem to lock up or cause an issue with version 2, you now have just one button, and it's a momentary push on and push off for each of the fire buttons, and that is actually quite nice and a nice little touch. We also have changed the ADIRs. The button, the on battery is no longer a button. It is actually just the on battery light, and they've made it smaller to try and fit all this extra information in. The buttons themselves feel a lot nicer and have definite clicks when you push some of the buttons. Those that are meant to click on and off, they have a nice little click to them, so that's all good. The ground control button is now also a momentary button like it should be, and so is the external power button is also a momentary button. You can see also that we have the fuel transfer crossfeed now instead of the manual mode selector. It would have been nice to see both of them there, but the crossfeed is used more than the manual selector in most situations. We also have the new GPWS systems. We did have the landing flap 3 configuration button in version 2, but we now have the system and the terrain, which is a very nice little addition as well to version 3. So some nice little features there. We also now have a probe heat button to turn the probe heat on and off. And of course, we don't have the APU generator button anymore. That's gone, but we do have the probe heat. The switches are bigger switches than the smaller previous version buttons from the V2, and they have a nice click to them. So very nice indeed. And the calls button is over on the side here. Now, instead of the TCAS one, which we didn't really need on the overhead, we now have the wiper button over here. And of course, for the air conditioning unit, we have the shut, auto and open switch, which makes a lot more sense to that. As you can see, the layout of it is very, very nice. And it's about the same size as the version 2, but just incorporates more features because they've made a few things a little bit smaller, changed the buttons, and it's definitely a lot nicer in that regard. Now, this doesn't come with the plastic, the overhead panels, the little covers and that you would find, but I'm actually 3D modeling some of those at the moment as we speak to actually try to add them on and increase the level of realism again. But for what they are, they're very nice switches. They look a little bit too big compared to the version 2, but they're a good solid switch, and will give you plenty of use there. So that is actually a nice little addition. So powering up the unit, it's already plugged into our aircraft, which is sitting cold and dark. So let's power on, and we can see there that the power on comes to effect nicely, and we have our batteries are off. So let's turn our batteries on. And our batteries are now on. And we can set the ADIRs. And you should see a little fault light come on at the top here as well when we turn each one. Just a flicker of the fault light. We'll wait for the on battery light to come on. up the top. And there we are on battery. Do number 2. Same little flicker of the fault light. We'll get the on battery come up on that. There we are on battery, and of course with number 3. And we'll just make sure that we turn these IRUs on so that they're not in the off position. And we can see that we have our fault light on the terrain. We'll just check that is clicking on and off. That is. And the same with the other one. We'll just check that the lights are coming on and off. Nice little click on the buttons, and the landing flaps there. So the buttons are working quite nicely. The crossfeed, if we turn that on, we'll get the green open light come on there as well, that the crossfeed is open, and that is quite correct and nice. So we'll turn that off. Let's put our fuel pumps on. We'll see a little flicker of the fault light like we should. Have to check into that one. They may not have wired that correctly on the config. That's an easy thing to fix. And our center pumps are on. But what is more important is it correlating with what's in the Fenix on the screen? And yes, it is. So we turn the pump off and turn it on. That's fine. There's a little flicker of the fault light, but it's not showing up on here. So that's probably just a config oversight. Easy to double check. All right, so we have our packs off, our APU bleed is off. Our next one we would do is turn the oxygen supply. As you can see, that's off, and we want it on. Crew oxygen supply and the ground control on. So now that's fine. And we'll set our nav logo to the first position, and of course our science set. Now we also have the dome switch on this one, so we can turn the dome lights on as well. And I've verified that all this works, and we'll go and see the Fenix shortly by flicking this. We'll turn our APU on. Our batteries are on. We'll start our APU. And we should see the APU come to life very shortly. Now it does have the integrated overhead backlighting, but the lighting is not overly powerful and overly strong, which is fine, because it's actually, you wouldn't need it unless you're in a very dark cockpit. But the lighting that is on the background is quite effective for what it is, and it does work with the integrated overhead lighting from the actual cockpit. Now you won't notice it with the light shining on it at the moment. You may notice a tiny little bit there, but if I turn the light off that we have here in the studio, you'll see, let me do that now. Turn that light off. You'll notice the backlighting is now visible, but of course I still have light in this room. All right. So you can see the backlighting is coming on there quite nicely. The APU is now available. If I turn the room light off, you'll get more of an understanding of the effect. And now that the light is off in the room, if this was an actual cockpit, dark, cold cockpit, you can still read everything that is quite readable. Okay, so we can see that that works nicely, and we can turn that down and dim it down, and it does work with the integrated overhead lighting knob in the sim. Let's turn the no smoking on and the seatbelt signs. And let's do a fire test. Oh, I'll do this so that you can see it better. If I do this, the fire test on engine 1. And you can see the light comes up. I've got the sound turned down, but if I turn the sound up, And you can hear that. We can turn that sound up more if you want. And so on. And it's really good the way they've put the fire word there. So there we are, guys. That is the A107 version 3, and it's very effective. Now let's have a look at the controls with the sim. I'll just minimize this camera down. Okay, and now we can see the overhead from the simulator is there. And you can see everything's functioning. So let's turn everything back off. Turn the ADIRS off, and you can see the knobs are moving. We can see if we put the wipers on. Now it's only activating the captain's wipers. I'm going to change the configuration for those of you who want to, so that when you do the wipers, it does both wipers. It's entirely up to you guys. It's an easy thing to do. Basically, it's just copying the wiper configuration from the switch and to the first officer setting. So it's not a hard thing. You could do it yourself. But if you want one already done, I will modify the configuration file from Rowsfire to allow that. Right, let's turn that down a little bit. Now, we can see if we turn the dome light off. There's the dome light's gone off. If we turn the overhead light integration knob, you can see the knob moving. You can see that knob moves quite well. And of course, all the switches move quite well as well. So, for an overhead panel, that is probably the cheapest on the market. It is an effective overhead panel. It is an effective mini overhead panel and will give you everything that you need. Now you might find that when it arrives, you might find that some of the nuts are not very tight, and there's a reason for that. Now I actually thought, well, they just haven't done them up, but no, there's actually a reason for them not being all the way done up. It's to keep a little bit of pressure off pushing the acrylic down too hard, which could damage the acrylic and also damage the electronics underneath. So they're fine if they're just finger tight. There's not a problem there. Finger tight is fine. Otherwise, it could damage it. So don't go tightening them down. If you get your unit and the nuts are loose around the switches, just finger tighten them up. That's all you got to do. Don't over tighten them. Don't use any tightening gear, because otherwise you could damage them. So as you can see, guys, everything works. All the buttons are nice. There's a nice click on the buttons. Okay, we got a little bit of an issue there because I pushed it down too tight. That was my fault then, because I did that one up a little bit tight because I did think it was loose, but it's not. Okay, but engine 1 anti-ice is not coming on. There we are. Okay, again, I did tighten some of these switches up, maybe a little too tight, so it's just pushing down a little bit on the acrylic. There we go. You see? That is why if these are too tight, they're just pushing down too much on them. So just make sure that they don't have to be deadly tight anyway, because the switch is not going to go anywhere. Alright, so plenty of easy movement there with the switch. So if you find any of the switches or the buttons maybe not working, just check that the nuts on the switches are just finger tight. They don't need to be overly tightened or anything like that, and that's the reason why they've done that. So you can see there's no problem with the buttons, there's no problem with the unit at all. It works quite well. So for what it's worth, guys, the Rowsfire A107 version 3, in my opinion, gets a definite 9 out of 10. Not a perfect 10 out of 10, because there are some things that could be improved, but not a bad unit at all, and definitely worth the money, worth the investment. And don't forget, if you use code FROSTYNUT at the checkout, you can get extra discounts on Rowsfire products, on all Rowsfire products, using code FROSTYNUT at the checkout. So don't forget to use that, guys. It's very important. If you are not already getting a good discount, you can add code FROSTYNUT to that and get as much of a discount as you can. Use code FROSTYNUT. Use code FROSTYNUT. Use code FROSTYNUT. I can't specify that enough. Okay, so there you go, guys. Now the only other thing I'm going to touch base on before we finish this review up is with MobiFlight. I'm going to tell you again that everything you do in MobiFlight is very important. When you first get your product, stand still window, make sure that when you get your Rowsfire A107 plugged in, the first thing you do, and I tell you this time and time again, and I will stress it to the point, is make sure that once it's plugged in, go to the modules, go to your Rowsfire A107 version 3, highlight it, click on save, and save that Rowsfire V3 configuration wherever you want to save it. Wherever you want to save it. For example, I've already got one there saved there for the V2. We'll save this one for the V3. That is saved, and the reason is that if anything goes wrong with the unit, or you lose your configuration for anything, you just go to open, click on that file, open, and then upload the config. That's very important, and that'll restore that module. Now that's only for the module itself. Also make sure that once you get your Rowsfire configuration for the actual use of it and the project downloaded, that you also save that again, back up somewhere so that you've got a backup. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I will be happy to answer any question I can. So also I want to note that to you guys that the USB port is now on the back, at the bottom of the back, and it does have the 14mm, I'm told M4 screw VESA holes. Don't force them. Don't use screws that are too long, because otherwise you'll push a screw right through the circuit board. Use screws, I think they say 15mm. I'd probably go 10mm, but whatever is going to make it secure. It's not a heavy unit. It's not a heavy unit by any standard of the word. I'm also going to change these knobs to a white, like I did with my V2, because I actually prefer white knobs. And if you'd like a set of white knobs, let me know, and I'll be happy to arrange for a small cost to print out some white knobs as well, like I did with my V2. And also the knobs, when I finish these ones off, I will make a set of knobs for the switches, and we'll make them available on my online shop as well for a very small, reasonable price. But that's the unit, guys, and if you like what you see, you can get it through the Rowsfire. Don't forget to use my code FROSTYNUT, or to see what discounts they have available. But I would highly recommend it. So compared to the V2, the V2 was still a nice unit and worked really well, but definitely the V3 is definitely a very, very nice unit. So there you are, guys. There's not much more I can say about it, except it's worth every cent, and we got to support a Rowsfire. Now, some people, yes, they've had their issues, they've had problems in the past, and certainly, you know, there have been mistakes made and you know, errors done, but they are there to make sure that if there's a problem, they'll rectify it, or people like me will rectify it, you know, or we will get the problem sorted out. Please remember that Rowsfire is a startup company. They have not been around for very long, and like any company, they're going to make mistakes, but they're learning from their mistakes. They're improving on their designs, they're improving on their quality control, And people like me who do these reviews for you guys, I'm sent these products. I don't, I'm not endorsed by Rowsfire on what I say. They don't give me a script on what I say. Everything I say is what I observe and my personal opinion and feelings about each and every product. And this product, just like the V2, I did like the V2 and I still do, but this product, the V3 overhead, is a good investment for flight sim, in my opinion. So I hope this review helps you guys. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of mini overheads, and some of them are a higher quality, but also a higher price. SL3, great products. Also, I've got SL3 products myself, and he does an overhead as well. Sim gauges, Java simulation, and Skolaki all do high quality overheads, but each overhead the price goes up. So for the budget conscious flight simmer, I recommend the Rowsfire A107 version 3. Take it from Frosty Nut. Stay frosty. Thanks guys. Catch you again.